Hello, everyone. This is Carl Shinneman, and welcome to another edition of the Making Law Easy Show from www.makinglawEasy.com. Pleased today to have Pittsburgh family law attorney Jeffrey Pollock with us today. What was your best moment as an attorney, if you could think back on your practice?
I think the one that is almost a microcosm of my career was an unusual situation where a client who had an unfortunate situation where she went up to visit her sister in New York for a wedding. And this was not a surprise. It wasn't a surprise to her ex-husband, but he was somewhat malicious. And when he took their child, it was a 5-year-old, up to New York for just a week to be part of the wedding. But unfortunately, her ex-husband, who was blowing things out of proportion and had a lawyer who did not control her client very well, and allowed this man to talk the lawyer into filing an emergency motion while I was gone for just a weekend, and evidently something was faxed to me while I was gone. They presented an emergency motion, and a judge who was concerned about the safety of a child but didn't know the whole story entered an emergency order requiring that the police and that anyone else who had knowledge of where this child was bring him back immediately into the father's custody. Well, my client returned from New York exactly when she said she would, and gave the father of the child his normal custody time. And I talked to my client, and I suggested that in order to pave things over, because I had then learned about what had happened, that she give him some makeup time since she was gone in New York. And when the makeup time was over, the father refused to return the child, and I had to present an emergency motion, which, given the climate of child kidnapping issues, given that my client had gone to New York, and even though there was nothing wrong with that, a judge had entered an emergency order, so I went back to that judge. It was a very complex case. It had a lot of water under the bridge, so to speak, that made it tough, but I was able to get my client, her child, back for her primary custody, and to the best of my knowledge, things are going smoothly.
Well, that's great. What's the best way a potential client can contact you?
Certainly, the phone is an easy way to leave me a voicemail if I'm not at my desk. If I'm in court, someone can always call 412-421-2232. My fax machine is always up and running 24/7, so they can reach me by fax if they prefer at 412-421-2237. And email is certainly these days the most popular way to go. My email address is jlplaw15217@aol.com.
Well, Jeff, thanks again for joining us to provide some helpful information for our listening public.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, Carl.
You've been listening to the Making Law Easy Show from www.makinglawEasy.com.